We're going to start the council meeting for June 8th, 2020. We'll begin by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, roll call, please.
Mr. Delaney?
Here.
Mr. Dern?
Present.
Mr. Doyle?
Here.
Mr. Hazzard?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Pastor?
Here.
Mr. Vento?
Here.
Mayor Schlegel?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of May.
I'll make that motion. Second.
It's been properly, we have a motion by Mr. Dern, second by Mr. Doyle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the expenses for the month of May.
So moved. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good, go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Thomas, if you would, please.
The general fund payables for the month of May, payables requiring council approval. $301,283.24. Street Improvement Fund payables requiring council approval, $3,145.16. Fire Fund payables requiring council approval, $24,385.43. Capital Improvement Fund payables requiring council approval, $139,168. Flood Mitigation Fund payables requiring council approval, $34,429.19. EMS Fund payables requiring council approval, $35,791.05. 2019 Bond Fund payables requiring council approval, $25,749.66. Purchasing Card Direct Vendor Payments, Republic Services, $167,711.05. And miscellaneous borough purchases of $56.94, for a total payables to be approved, $731,719.72.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Doyle and second by Mr. Dern. Would you vote to approve the expenses for the month of May? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the minutes of May 11th, 2020 council meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Dern.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Vento. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Recognition of achievements in the community. Mayor Schlegel.
Thank you. A couple of things I have. Our police and fire departments this past month, EMS included, have been rather busy with requests for parades and that for birthdays, graduations, and such. I've got a couple of notes here. Our police got one and says, "Thank you so much for your help, support, and kindness. The parade was exactly what all seniors needed within our community. You were awesome," and it's signed by Jody Cook, and that is on behalf of the Plum High School and the PSSO. I happened to be up there for that parade up at the school when they came through. We had over 100 cars with every vehicle we had in Plum in the parade. I got to say this, for the students, it was a bit of an emotional issue, and I could tell. Obviously, some of the girls had tears in their eyes from the emotion. I was surprised the number of boys, young men, that had the tears in their eyes. It was really a wonderful, wonderful event. The other thing that impressed me was the number of teachers that showed up for this parade. In the evening, on their own time, they were there to support the students that they've had all through high school. So we do appreciate that. And secondly, we had a young girl who had a birthday, and again, a parade was held for her to help her celebrate it. She took the time to draw. Can you get that, Vince? Wherever you want it, you tell me.
That's good, right there.
Okay, to draw this picture and said that to the chief. Now, She also did one for all of the fire companies. Obviously, it has a fire truck and not a police car, and one for EMS with an ambulance. So that's how much she was impressed by her parade. And so this picture we are going to hang in the police office back here, not in the chief's office, but where the officers, where the sergeant's desk is and where the officers come and go. So they were really appreciated the fact that she took the time, Annabelle is her name, to draw this. And I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if it was a mistake or in the background there's some cars drawn. So I'm hoping that represents the parade and not her first or second attempt at drawing the painting. So again, Annabelle, thank you very much. It's much appreciated and all the officers like it. And that's all I have right now, Mr. President.
Mr. Odom, if I may just add one thing. My son, Aiden, graduated high school this year, and I just want to send kudos out to the school district. They had their graduation at the Pittsburgh Mills, and they got the stage and the big screen TV donated by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I'm telling you, they did a fantastic job. For as disappointing and as upsetting as it was for the majority of the kids, the school district did a great job making it special for them. So just want to say kudos to them.
Yeah, thanks for recognizing that. That's definitely something that's important. So. Okay, moving on to civic announcements. Do we have any? Okay, no civic announcements, so we'll move on to president's comments. So first, I do want to welcome everyone who's here this evening, as well as those who might be participating via our stream that's on YouTube or any of the other forms of broadcasts that we do on our local television stations. I think I would be somewhat remiss if I didn't take a moment to identify some of the issues surrounding the civil unrest that's occurred in the country over the last week or so that's associated with the dark cloud of racism. It's impacted the country, and we all have seen what's been going on television, and it's certainly something that is very disheartening. That being said, we have gotten a number of emails sent to individuals, as well as our police chief, asking to know what the position is associated with the issue of racism. I will tell you that we denounce any form of racism against any race or ethnic background, period. That being said, I'm a fundamental believer that actions speak louder than words. We can make all the statements that we want, but at the end of the day, it's the actions that matter. And I will tell you that if you want to know what the position of this council is when it comes to racism, look no further than the individual that's sitting in this chair right now. Back in January, this council unanimously voted for an African American to lead this council. That's the end of that. When it comes to the police force, I will tell you that Chief Connolly has a very proactive program in place to ensure that his officers are abiding in accordance with the rules and regulations in policing the area. They have gone over all of their use of force guidelines, reviewed them and updated them accordingly. But they have also taken proactive measures associated with diversity and cultural training that they gave their officers both in 2017 and in 2018. So I think it's very important for folks to understand that our police force is very serious about the manner in which they conduct their policing and make sure that everybody's going to be treated equally. I am somewhat dismayed by the fact that it seems in some cases that the misguided actions of a few have unfortunately characterized the character of a number of police officers in the country. And we all need to make sure that we understand that the vast majority of police officers are here to protect and serve. We certainly appreciate their dedication in that matter. Moving on to the item associated with the Stormwater Task Force update. I unfortunately have to announce that Carlos Escalante, who was serving as the lead for the Stormwater Task Force, has asked to step down reluctantly due to unforeseen circumstances. He's no longer going to be serving in that capacity. So in his absence, I'm going to give an overview of the Stormwater Task Force meeting that we had, the last Stormwater Task Force meeting that we had. And that meeting occurred on May 21st, 2020. We went over a number of the interim solutions that we had received from the borough engineer to include the controlled flood area between Unity Center and the Turnpike. The design concept that was presented by KU Resources as a long-term solution was gone over. But after looking at that, the staff felt that the area should only be completed after an upstream solution is considered and investigated at the Center Beach property, which is at the intersection of Salzburg and Center New Texas roads. That Center Beach property is currently for sale and sits at a very strategic location that would allow us to control downstream flooding on Anderson Avenue. But also further upstream at the Salzburg Unity Center and Center New Texas Road area. So our KU Resources individual, Tyson Miller, has been participating in our meetings and has provided summary recommendations on that design concept. We also looked at a number of other solutions associated with the O-Block Key West area in the solution regarding constructing or installing a larger controlled flood area. We investigated the possibility of approaching Allegheny County about a joint project on the Boyce Park property, which is also immediately upstream of the Pine Valley Drive, and that would significantly contribute to storm flows in that area. Pine Valley Drive's been an area of concern as well, and if we did something around the Boyce Park property, we could potentially impound stormwater upstream of Pine Valley Drive. Some other items that we took a look at were relative to the storm work that was completed since our last meeting. Due to the governor's quarantine, which required social distancing and mandatory closures of a lot of businesses, the work volume for the past 4 weeks has been below normal levels. All work crews began regular shift work only on May 18th, and our suppliers are now back to near normal. So we expect that we'll be able to start completing a number of the projects that we have on our list of things to accomplish. That includes, so some of the work that was completed, borough crews installed 12-inch pipe on Falk Road, and they had portions of the road which had to be restabilized, resulting in 38 tons of asphalt, which was placed to rebuild that road surface. Restoration work was completed on other project areas. As the weather let up, they restored previously disturbed private property areas that had been excavated for repairs to collapsed storm pipes. We also went over new email correspondence that was sent to the Stormwater Task Force. There was an issue associated with runoff on Leroy Street. The erosion occurring immediately upstream of that culvert was determined to be a natural stream bank erosion as the channel migrates back and forth across the down valley axis of the floodplain. The stream bank in that area is planted with grass, which doesn't help to destabilize the top side of the bank because of grass roots, but the underside of the bank can be undercut during specific flow rates that create high velocity flows at lower water volumes. So any of the actions that we have to do in that particular area would require approval from the DEP, because it's more than 50 feet upstream from the culvert. We'll be looking to potentially discuss permission from the property owner, which is St. John's, in order to potentially look at the natural flow and the function of that stream. And then the last item that we went over was associated with the inventory of stormwater retention ponds. That's one of the significant action items that we have on the task force. A spreadsheet was developed by staff to begin the inventory for all of the existing retention ponds, and that listing is going to be continually updated as information regarding those retention ponds is obtained. Some of the information that was collected was researched and uploaded into the GIS. They've identified that only 18 of 61 ponds have been identified as borough-owned, and a number of those ponds were never officially adopted or accepted. So there's going to be some substantial amount of work and research to determine how to address the remaining ponds with respect to ownership, management, and maintenance, and oversight. And then the last item that I wanted to go over from the task force meeting was in regard to the public meeting that was planned. The task force members agreed that tentatively scheduling the date for the public meeting should be postponed until sometime after Allegheny County transitions to the green phase and reopening the state from the COVID-19 social distancing restrictions. Now, that just happened on Friday, so at the next task force meeting, we'll be looking to determine when we'll schedule that particular public meeting. And the next Stormwater Task Force meeting has been scheduled for June 18th.
Mr. Odom,
Yes.
do we want to ask for an application for anybody who wishes to serve on the board since Carlos is stepping down?
Actually, that's a good idea. I haven't had a chance to interact with the task force to make them aware of, Carlos stepping down. But I'll send out that communication, and then we'll probably, look for a suitable replacement for Carlos. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good idea. Any other questions regarding the task force? Okay, moving on to the manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one item this evening. I'd like to report that the PA Turnpike Commission will be implementing a detour of Salzburg Road to include the intersection of Davidson Road, tentatively starting July 6th, to tie the existing roadway to the new bridge. The detour will include Salzburg Road between Davison and Monroeville Trestle and will be in place approximately for 27 calendar days, allowing only local access to residents and businesses within these limits. The detour will also restrict all traffic through the intersection of Davidson and Salzburg, with the exception of access for emergency service to the residents and businesses. Separate car and truck detour routes will be established for traffic needing to cross over the PA Turnpike from Salzburg Road. The car detour for Salzburg Road will utilize Salzburg, Leechburg, and New Texas roads to cross over the PA Turnpike. The truck detour will utilize Salzburg to Peterman's Corner, Frankstown Road, State Route 791, US 22, and 286 to cross over the Turnpike. And we'll be issuing more information about this as we get closer to the 6th, as will the Turnpike Commission. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Moving on to citizen comments on agenda items.
We have no one signed up.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to council actions. On behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, Mr. Vento.
No, I don't think there's anything, yeah, nothing, since I got,
Yeah,
At
both of those items
both of those
have
items
been.
have
Okay,
been
got it.
deleted.
On behalf of the Personnel Management Committee, Mr. Doyle, or Mr. Hadley, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll get it right.
I'm a lot better looking than him, by the way.
For sure.
On behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee, I move to adopt the Borough Connect customer service policy.
Motion by Mr. Hadley.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Duran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee, I move to adopt the Borough Media policy.
Motion by Mr. Hadley.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Pastor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of Personnel and Management Committee, I move to approve a COLA for a retired police officer as recommended by the Borough Actuary.
Motion by Mr. Hadley.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Doyle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of Personnel and Management Committee, I move to approve a COLA for a second retired police officer as recommended by the Borough Actuary.
Motion by Mr. Hadley.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Duran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, on behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee, I move to adopt Resolution 879-20, establishing a defined contribution plan for the Department of Public Works.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Motion by Mr. Hadley, second by Mr. Vento. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley.
Thank you, Mr. President.
On behalf of the Public Safety Committee, Mr. Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. I move to enact ordinance number 947-20, making Ralph Street one-way.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dern and a second by Mr. Vento. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Dern. The next item that we have on the matter of public safety has to do with the injection well. And I'm going to have Mr. Thomas display some slides for you to see so that we can kind of give you an overview on the issue associated with the injection well and speak to you on the number of things that council has been considering relative to allowing Penteco to establish the injection well in the borough. Go ahead to the first slide, sir. So, for those of you who may not be familiar, an injection well is used to place fluid underground into a porous geological formations. Injected fluids may include water, wastewater, brine, which is salt water, or chemicals related to oil and gas drilling, including frac wastewater. Injection wells have historically been used by the oil and gas industry to dispose of wastewater, which has the potential to impact the drinking water of residents that rely on the local well water. When it comes to injection wells, sometimes there can be some confusion between injection wells and oil and gas fracking wells. And they are two different things. The fracking process is where you're pulling things out of the ground, whereas the injection well, you're pumping things into the ground. So they are substantially two different types of operations. Next slide, please. So over the last 3 years, council has instructed our solicitor to take a number of legal actions in order to fight the establishment of the injection well in Plum. Some of the things that we have gone off and done is to, one, appeal the permit that was issued by the Environmental Protection Agency. We also defended the Penteco challenge to the zoning hearing board decision in Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. And we also appealed that lower court decision by the Court of Common Pleas to the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court. Now, each legal challenge unfortunately resulted in the courts ruling against the borough. To date, the borough spent approximately $32,000 in fighting the injection well. Next slide, please. So this just gives you a summary of the actions that we've taken. Beginning in March of 2016, where Penteco submitted their application for their permit to the EPA. On September 9th, there was a petition to the zoning hearing board to challenge the validity of our zoning ordinance, asserting it was invalid because it didn't have a conditional use for an injection well. In June, Plum announced plans to adopt the new zoning ordinance. So one of the issues that was identified in our zoning ordinance relative to it being exclusionary is now corrected. In July of 2017, there was a public hearing with the Environmental Protection Agency on the injection well being established in Plum. In October of 2017, the zoning hearing board denied the validity challenge, and in December of 2017, Plum adopted the new zoning ordinance, as I previously alluded to. In March of 2018, the EPA issued the permit for the injection well, which essentially allowed the company to establish the well in Plum, pending the DEP issuing a permit to change its existing use from production to disposal. In July, there was a hearing on Plum Boro's appeal to the EPA permit for the injection well, and then March of 2018, Penteco had applied to the DEP to obtain the permit to allow disposal. In June of 2018, the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas issued the decision that Penteco met its burden of establishing that our ordinance was exclusionary, and they reversed the decision made by Plum's zoning hearing board. Next slide. October of 2018, DEP held a public hearing on the waste injection well in Plum. Plum filed an appeal with the PA Commonwealth Court in February of 2019. March of 2019, the PA Commonwealth Court upheld the lower court's decision, which essentially means they ruled against Plum. In October of 2019, council granted preliminary final land development approval for the injection well contingent upon Penteco entering into a development agreement with the borough and them securing final approvals from the DEP, PennDOT, the Allegheny County Department of Health, and borough engineer. In April of this year, the DEP approved the Penteco injection well permit. In May, council met with representatives from the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, which is an organization that represented Grant Township in their fight against the establishment of an injection well. May 13th, Plum submitted an appeal to the DEP on the injection well permit. And then on June 2nd, there was a survey sent to residents to solicit input on Plum continuing to legally challenge the establishment of an injection well and the impact to its taxpayers. And that's where I want to kind of pick up in talking about the survey and the results of the survey that we ran. If you go to the next slide. We thought that it was important to solicit input from the residents with respect to their desire to continue to fight against the injection well, because there are a number of potential issues associated with continuing that legal fight. In many cases, we've been advised by our solicitor that continuing that legal course could potentially result in the borough being sued for a substantial amount of money. That being said, before we made a decision of such gravity, we wanted to at least try to obtain some input from the community relative to their thoughts on us continuing to fight this legally. So the questions that make up the survey were sent out to borough residents last Tuesday, and we received a total of 199 responses. Not necessarily the number that we expected to get. We were hoping for more, but we're going to have to go with what we got. Regarding the number of residents that were concerned about the injection well, of the 199 responses, 176 people expressed their concern about the injection well. And that's certainly no surprise given the previous public response that was received at the public meetings for both the EPA and the DEP. Residents who desire to continue to legally fight the establishment of the injection well, there were 154 positives on that question. Residents concerned about the impact to the borough if in pursuing the legal fight to the injection well, it results in the borough being sued, were 96. Residents who agreed to fight the injection well as long as the cost impact did not exceed $100,000, 96. Residents who disagreed to fight the injection well as long as the cost impact did not exceed $100,000, 52. Residents who agreed to fight the injection well as long as the cost impact did not exceed $500,000, 66. Residents who disagreed to fight the injection well as long as the cost impact did not exceed $500, 61. Residents who agreed to fight the injection well as long as the cost impact did not exceed $1 million, 53. Residents who disagreed to fight the injection well as long as the cost impact did not exceed $1 million, 75. So the trend that you can see with respect to the desire to continue to fight the injection well seemed to go down as the value increased with respect to the cost that might incur, that the borough might incur in conducting that legal fight. The number of residents who agreed to fight the injection well regardless of cost, 84. The number of residents who disagreed to fight the injection well regardless of cost, 65. So somewhat even. Number of residents who agreed not to risk taxpayer dollars to fight the injection well was only 30. And the number of residents who disagreed with not risking taxpayer dollars to fight the injection well was 131. So that is the results of the survey that we sent out. Council is going to discuss this matter now. I'll open it up to the floor to allow the various councilmen to provide their feedback on the survey as well as their individual sentiments relative to continuing the legal fight on the injection well. And then we didn't receive any requests for public comment, but certainly open it up to any other residents who are here who have any comment on the matter.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, I'd like to go first, if you don't
Yes, sir.
mind. Just to back up a little bit, during the presentation, I just want to make one thing clear. We were advised for the last couple of years as to our risks and outcomes, basically, by our solicitor. And at every state, well, I should back up even farther. I said, sitting in that chair, that the ordinance is plain and simple and clear. We can fight this, but we're going to lose it. Our solicitor told us that. Has nothing to do with who our attorney would have been at this point. Fighting this was a loser. We all agreed at that point that the injection well was worth fighting to a certain point. We spent $32,000 appealing. Now we're at the point of no return. We're at the edge of the cliff. We're looking at significant money if we go any further. It could be upwards of $500,000, we're told, for another loser. I for one, I think that's something we really need to look hard at. 199 people responded to this survey. You said you didn't expect that. I did. I thought, personally, I thought the survey was, I thought it was a waste of time, quite frankly. We're elected to make decisions, and at this point, we need to make a business decision, and that's what we're here to do. We've done everything we can to stop this injection well. You bring up Grant Township. Grant Township has 700 residents. We have 33,000 residents. And basically what happened there, people are saying Grant Township won. They didn't win anything. They're paying $100,000 in legal fees, their opponent's legal fees. And the gas company, I'm not sure if it's Penteco, I forget.
No, it's not.
It's not Penteco. The gas company found a loophole. The attorneys found a loophole. All the gas companies are going to do is change their tactic, and the injection well is going to Grant Township anyway eventually. I'm telling you right now, this is an absolute loser, and we need to take all of that into consideration. With that said, I'll reserve the fact to say some more later, but for that, I just wanted to get that out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I have a
Doyle.
couple comments I'd like
Yeah,
to make.
go ahead, Mr. Vento.
I basically agree with what you say, oddly enough, Mr. Doyle, although I disagree with not asking the public, because whenever there's a chance you might be expending a great sum of money, we always get some sort of public input, that's not expected.
When's the last survey we did to see if we could spend the
Survey,
money?
no. This is a new one for me. It is new.
Yeah.
But we always get more, lately, we haven't had much participation at meetings, obviously. So I thought this is a good way to try and reach people that might otherwise come to the building and speak. So you're right, this is the first survey I've ever been involved with, but things are changing. Sometimes you have to go out to the media if you can and to reach your people. But obviously, the people, you have to make a business decision. And, personally is one thing. I'd like to fight this as long as humanly possible. But I agree with our solicitor, is probably a loser. And Grant Township, as much as I applaud them for their keep on trying, they're losing a lot of money. I understand they had those fees paid for by somebody else. But, that's not going to happen here in Plum, because people feel Plum can pay for their own thing, So we're going to end up be on the hook for the money. So, I agree with the decision not to move forward.
Other comments?
I'm in line with Mr. Doyle.
Okay.
After everything we've been through here as a council, taking everything into consideration, talking to the people from Grant Township, especially with this shutdown that we're just coming out of, the liquid fuel taxes are going to be down. We're going to be struggling. We're going to be struggling with the 2021 budget, and I just feel that throwing any more money away at this for a losing proposition is just putting money in the lawyers' pockets. I think it's a mistake.
I'd rather go in the lawyer's pocket. This is like putting money in a sink and burning it, quite frankly.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what all of you guys are saying. You have to make the business decision. You have to weigh all the different options brought forth by, obviously legal counsel and the research that we've done on our behalf, or on behalf of the borough. But it just doesn't sit with me well. It really hurts to the fact that, this company is going to come in, they're going to inject all this fluid into the ground. It's radioactive. We can't get our ground back. If our water's polluted, we can't fix that. And, you know, that could be something that affects our community for 10, 20 years. And
Not only
you know,
our community.
not only our community, other communities. So, you know, my perspective from the beginning, and trust me, I'm the guy that doesn't want to spend money uselessly. But my perspective from the beginning has always been, you know, they came in here, they sought us out because they found a loophole in our zoning, because they have the money to do it. And, you know, they probably realized that, hey, guys, guess what? There's fracking wells going up around here. Hey, we're going to cash in. They could put all their stuff in the ground right here, you know, where it will be cheap, and they could cash in on it. I thought it's sleazy. I think that, you know, we owe it to all of our residents and to our children to leave this community in a better place. And I get it. I mean, I don't want to spend unnecessary money. It is a loser. But at the same time, you know, I believe I was elected to protect our community. And I believe wholeheartedly that if it means going down in flames and a loser, sometimes you got to fight and you got to be the loser. And that's just my position. I agree with what you guys have to say, but at the same time, I'd rather put up a fight. Just my position.
Other thoughts? So there is some potential alternatives, and you know, I think all of us would agree that none of us want this, right? I mean, for those of us who have been on council, you know, for several years, and for some of the folks who have recently come on council, I think that, you know, I echo everyone's sentiment that nobody wants this. But I think there may be some alternatives, and one of the things that we could potentially consider is, you know, the money that we would potentially be spending on a lawsuit, we could allocate into a fund to use to potentially pursue any recourse against Penteco in the event that they violate, you know, the ordinances associated with them operating an injection well in Plum. Essentially, you know, putting money away for a rainy day. And that was something that I spoke with the borough manager about relative to alternatives to, you know, pursuing a legal challenge. Another alternative, which is one that I was thinking about, was specific to setting up some type of an oversight committee for the injection well, where we have individuals who are actively ensuring that the operation of that injection well is done in accordance with the, you know, policies, procedures that have been established, you know, both by our local borough ordinances as well as, you know, the state requirements for operating, you know, such a platform. So that's something that we could also consider doing, is to put together a very, you know, detailed oversight plan through a committee that's essentially charged with providing oversight of that operation if and when it decides to be stood up here in the borough. And I guess I'd look to hear what some of your thoughts are on that.
Well, the committee, I'm not qualified to sit on that committee.
Right.
I don't think anybody up here is. Isn't that the EPA and DEP's job to do? I don't know.
It is. It is their job, but
Yeah.
those are also the organizations that granted the permit in the first place. So, but to your point, Mr. Doyle, you're right. You know, we probably don't have the expertise, but you know, it may be something that we could seek some expertise. I'm thinking that we could, you know, investigate the potential for doing it. Maybe have someone do some research to see if there are some entities, like we talked to the CELDEF organization that represented Grant Township. Are they aware of any such organizations that are capable of doing something at a minimal cost, as opposed to spending the money on a no-win situation? You know, could we spend money to provide, you know, appropriate oversight? And I get it. You're right. The DEP is charged with that job. But do we leave it to others' points? Once something happens, it's too late. You know, is it worth potentially looking into, another venue for providing oversight?
Sure, it's worth looking into, but at no cost. I mean, that's the DEP's job. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody's going to say, well, that well's going to get contaminated. We don't know.
Right.
And with regard to the separate fund, I mean, we have money in our general fund. I think just starting a new fund and putting a certain amount of dollars over there, that's like smoke and
Right.
mirrors. We don't need to do that. I mean,
Okay.
if you want to, fine, but I don't see that, it's.
The money's
what's
there,
it
to your
doing?
point. Right.
These are just my 2 cents. But, I mean, I think we maybe form a committee to keep the DEP honest, keep a fire at their feet. I don't know, Mr. Solicitor, can we request from the DEP a monthly report, or do we already get one of those? I don't know this process. We're all learning as we go along here, basically.
I just want you to know that you're specifically precluded from having anything to say about how the wells are managed, built, driven,
Why am I not surprised?
maintained. This has all been taken away by both state and federal legislation. Shocking. Years ago, well diggers had problems with a bunch of municipalities that were coming in and trying to impose regulations. They went to our state and local, or state and federal government and got laws passed that say, you don't have a thing to say about it. Now, that doesn't stop you from going to DEP and EPA and saying, these are our concerns. Will they be addressed? I know that under the law, they're not required, but that doesn't mean it won't happen.
Thank you, Mr. Dice.
Well, the problem with going to the DEP and, especially, it's a largely underfunded agency, and they don't have enough help to do what they're doing now. That's part of the problem. And you're right, they can't do anything until it's already reported to them, because there's no way of knowing what's going on in that well until things are injected into it and things go wrong under the ground. And by that time, it's too late for a lot of the aquifer. So, I mean, I applaud your, maybe
Well, Dave,
get on the DEP.
Just, let's take this out just a little bit in what Dave's saying. There is a whole administrative process in the statutes that protect the residents in the event something happens like you're suggesting. There's some damage, or, that there's some, and the statute is written in such a fashion is as the gas company is actually presumed to be guilty. And they have an obligation to prove themselves innocent. So it's a high standard against the gas company and in favor of the resident. And if there is something that's later determined to be the fault of the gas company, and it's proven it's not, in fact, the standard does it, again, as I said, if the gas company can't prove it's not their fault, they pay.
Yeah, and I understand they do hold the
Oh, they have
companies that
hearings all the time.
frack, the drilling companies, a lot more adhere to that than the injection well. And the injection well, I think, in all due respect, Bruce, is a whole different animal than we're used to thinking about, because of its very nature of injecting high pressure into the ground, as well as, it's just a lot of fluid. There's a lot of stuff in the fluid that already loosened up the other soil to allow the gas to come out. So there's a lot of reason why you don't want that stuff in the ground, even if it's put in properly. So everybody's, don't worry about us underneath there, and we got city water anyway. Where do you think the city water comes from? The fact that we don't have well water, most of us anymore, is misleading. We all have water from reservoirs and stuff that gets affected by these things. So don't think we're protected, because we're not. And, I did a lot of research and a lot of talking about this when this was first an issue, and that's part of the reason for my desire not to want to fight anymore. I already did a lot of fighting on this, and it's not a winner for the communities. As much as I hate to agree, say that to anybody out there and agree with it myself, it's a loser. They have more money and more political clout than we'll ever have, and that's the only way you're going to change this issue. What people are doing now with protesting, we'd have to go do that.
And more than that, Dave, the law's on their side.
Exactly
They're
my point.
permitted to do
Exactly
it.
my point.
And when we found out about it, we changed our ordinances, so there's only one. There's not going to be 5.
We're in the
injection
process
wells
of
here.
making a new zoning ordinance when they found it.
Exactly.
So,
Okay, well, in the spirit of transparency, we really thought it was important to have this dialogue, during the meeting. so people could understand the position of council and also have some background on some of the actions that have been taken over the course of the last 3 years. Because I think in some cases, there were some people who didn't have all of the information. So we wanted to put that out to folks so that they had a good understanding of what's taken place, what the results of the survey were, and the rationale behind council's decision.
And if the majority of this community is actually against this, and they just they didn't know about the form or whatever, the survey or whatever, call, leave us a message, let us know. If you want to get organized, mobilized, do it. Give us some assistance. We can't go at this by ourselves. And then we'll have 30 people in here yelling and screaming at us for spending money. So, I've been there too, and that's not fun. So, we want to make sure we're representing the community, but if you don't tell us what you want, 200, how many responses? 199 responses out of a community of over 30,000 is abysmal. And I understand a lot of people complain to me about not having enough time they didn't know about the survey. There's a lot of different reasons. People aren't savvy, and I get all that. But this was the fastest way we could reach, we tried to reach the most people we could in the community. So that's why we did it. We were under some constraints for appeals and dropping the appeal and everything, so time constraints, and we didn't have a lot of time ourselves. So sorry for the urgency, but that's what it is.
So that closes the items associated with public safety. On behalf of the Roads, Equipment, and Grounds Committee, Mr. Pastor.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. On behalf of the Roads, Equipment, and Grounds Committee, I move to authorize change number 3 for the 2019 paving contract.
Motion by Mr. Pastor.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hadley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of the Roads, Equipment, and Grounds Committee, I move to authorize the expense of $201,350 for the Salzburg Road Stormwater Repair Project.
Motion by Mr. Pastor.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Pastor. And that ends our council actions for this evening. Moving on to the mayor's report. Mayor Slagle.
Thank you. In the month of May, we had 732 calls. And if you've been listening to what I've said over the months, that's way down from what we've normally had. Just a word of caution, our police were avoiding, unless it was a really egregious traffic offense, coming in contact with the public, both to protect the public as well as to protect the officers. We're not going to do that anymore, so don't be drifting through stop signs or speeding down streets, because all bets are off right now. On May 15th at 2:30 in the morning, there was a house fire up in the Highlands on Tartan Drive. And the first officers on the scene were Officer Cristo Iacchini and Officer Kingerski. They went in, made sure the building was empty, and just as an aside, I don't know how many times Tim has been to fires, but this is the third time for Crystal. They confirmed the residents were out of the house, and they attempted to put it out with their fire extinguishers they carry in the car and garden hoses, and other officers showed up before the fire department got there, and it was to no avail. And Mr. Hadley, I can tell you that the officers, the chief and the officers really appreciated your comment. That was a neighbor of yours?
Yes, they live directly across the street, and watching them all work was a sight to behold. I let the chief know that they did a fantastic job. I even donated my fire extinguisher to try to get get it in control. But everybody was very professional, and I thought did a fantastic job. And I can't say enough about what they did and how they responded, and everyone was safe.
Yep.
So.
Well, I can tell you again, and I'm repeating myself, but the officers, the department appreciated your comments. Thank you very much.
Well.
It's that springtime again. It's nice weather. The ATS radar sign is back out there. And again, I'm always amazed at these numbers. It was deployed at the 1500 block of O Block Road from April 28th to May 27th, 13,586 cars. I'm amazed at the amount of traffic we have on some of our streets. It was also at the 3,000 block of Leechburg Road. And in a 30-day period, and this is one direction, 42,482 vehicles went past that sign. That's one way. And again, it was put out on Rustic Ridge Drive, and it was 16,200 vehicles. In all cases, when people see that sign, they slow down. So if there's complaints of speeding, when we put the sign out, they do slow down. The sign is very effective in that respect. And our public service details, as I mentioned before, again, our police, our volunteers, regardless of who they are, the volunteers, they took their time to go out and help as many people as they could, whether they be celebrating their 4th birthday as Annabelle was, or they be celebrating their 100th birthday. They appreciated the fact that since with the restrictions we had, they were able to bring a little cheer to them. And I can't say enough about what happened with our seniors. And I'm talking about the high school graduating seniors. I also like to make a note that there are some thoughtful citizens here in Plum. Greg Icing made arrangements to provide lunch for the daylight and afternoon shifts from Nesbitt's Lane. And his lunches consisted of sandwiches, chips, and soft drinks, and they were greatly appreciated by the officers. Mark Reed, out of his own pocket, provided Subway gift cards to the entire police force, regardless of their shift that they were working. And that, again, Mr. Reed was told by Chief Conley that it was not necessary, but this is a kind of a tradition for him. He's been doing that for the past several years. And our traffic officer, Mike DeMarco, you can tell he's kissing up with his in-laws. But Peter and Ann Terassi, they're longtime Plum residents. I don't know if you people know them. But they made they brought lunch for the entire daylight and afternoon shifts, and plus the police administration staff. The police department received a painting from Annabelle Frere, and on May 19th, each officer received 2 pandemic first aid kits, and those were donated by Jim and David Sims in honor of their parents. And Jim Sims, as you may or may not know, is the chief at Holiday Park Fire Department. All this to say thank you to officers. And we've heard a lot recently about things going on with the police and with protesters and that. But let me tell you, our officers are trained and they are courteous. And I know sometimes when we meet them, it's not a good situation. We were speeding, we were whatever. But they're out there doing their jobs, and I wanted to show that the people of Plum Boro do appreciate all their efforts. And with that, Mr. President, that ends my report.
Thank you, Mayor Slagle. Moving on to committee reports, the Intergovernmental Cooperative Committee with the Plum School Board. We did not have a meeting with the school board last month, and I haven't received any requests for a future meeting. So we'll touch base with them and see what their desire is for a meeting in the future. Finance Committee, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. President. General fund highlights for the month of May 2020. The borough recognized revenues totaling $946,356 and incurred expenditures in the amount of $816,902. The revenues. To date, we have received $1.58 million in current earned income tax revenues, and this represents 41% of the adopted budget. The second quarter cable TV franchise fees were received from Comcast and Verizon and they totaled $147,441. During the month of May, the borough received $46,907 under regional asset district funding, and we are currently at 45% of that budget. Under sanitation revenues, for the year, we have received $946,785, and this amount represents 42% of the budget. Overall revenues are trending as anticipated. As far as the expenditures, through the month of May, the borough has expended 38% of the budget, which translates into $5.02 million. At the present time, there are no expenditure budget concerns. The Finance Committee will be meeting to discuss the following July 8th, I believe. We just set that up earlier today with Mr. Whitico. That agenda will include a 2019 independent audit, the 2020 actual and budget update, the 2020 year-end projects, and the independent audit contract. That ends the finance report, Mr. President, but there is one other thing I'd like to mention. Not dealing with finance, it's good news for the borough. I recently had a conversation with Tim Joyce. Tim Joyce is the Chief of Staff for Senator Brewster. Having had a couple of conversations with some of the borough staff, found out that our police department was having some issues with some of their tasers. Mr. Joyce said that through the DA's office, the senator would be willing to make a phone call for us to see if there was any grant money available. And I'm pleased to announce that we found out today that we're getting $10,000 grant for new tasers for the police department. So we can thank Tim Joyce, Senator Brewster, and Chief Conley for that. And, the DA.
That's great news.
Yeah.
And
great.
Tim Joyce, he's a resident of Plum.
He is a resident of Plum and on our zoning hearing board. Yeah. Yeah. Tim's a great guy. That's all I have, Mr. Owen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Roads, equipment, and grounds, Mr. Pastor.
Thank you. Youngblood Paving has completed all the paving from the awarded 2019 paving contract, and there is still maybe some yard restoration work to be completed. Walton Wind Ford has delivered the Ford Edge that is to be utilized by the admin department. We have had a pre-construction meeting with W.A. Petrakis for the water line and stormwater project on Salzburg Road. That construction should begin the week of June 8th or the 15th. There will be lane restrictions during this construction, limited to one lane, which will be controlled by flaggers. This project is expected to last 10 to 12 weeks. There is yard waste recycling services scheduled on the third Saturday of the following months, May, June, September, October, and November. To schedule pickup, contact Republic Services no later than the Wednesday before the third Saturday at 877-788-9400. All items for pickup must be at the curb before 6 a.m. on the scheduled pickup date, and the details will be on the borough website. We were able to purchase asphalt late this month. We had begun asphalting the areas that were dug up for inlet repairs and pipe replacements. This is continuing due to the inability to get asphalt due to restrictions placed by the governor on non-essential businesses. We have completed yard restoration work on Nassau Drive and on Holiday Park Drive. We completed pipe replacement and inlet repair work in Woodlawn Estates. This area is scheduled to be paved this year as well. We replaced pipe on Jackson Road and installed new head wall and trash rack. We installed new inlets, head wall, and pipe on Falk Road. This was due to no infrastructure in this area and created erosion by the cartway. We replaced two inlets, repaired and replaced two pipe crossings on Harborview Drive and Arcadia Park Drive. And we are continuing to do inlet repairs in Rustic Ridge. There are a total of 79 inlets that need to be repaired in that area for the paving project. We used 114 tons of asphalt for infrastructure repairs and 37 tons of asphalt for pothole patching and curb repairs, and installed new street signs where necessary. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Pastor. Public safety, Mr. Dern.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. Brian Maloney had a prior commitment, so he can't be here tonight, so I'll read his report. For the month of May, the operations report, total responses from the EMS were 232. Total patients transported, 132. And this is an approximately 43% increase compared to the month of April. Responses to other communities for mutual aid, 14. 9 of these responses resulted in transport to the hospital. Total mutual aid received in the Plum was 7. So out of the request for EMS and Plum, 3.2% were turned over to neighboring EMS agencies. One thing he wanted to make a case for was they were noticing higher numbers of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest continue to rise. This is occurring not only in Plum, but the country. So they strongly encourage everyone, don't wait till it's too late. Call 911 or go to the hospital if you start to experience chest pain, difficulty breathing, or if something doesn't feel right. Stay in touch with your doctor. Representatives from Highmark and AHN visited Plum EMS during EMS Week. Face covers were presented to crew members from the Highmark to help EMS personnel not to use surgical masks while in public. And their monthly CPR classes and car seat safety checks are back in place. So please refer to their website for further details. That concludes the report.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Dern. Planning and Economic Development, Mr. Vento.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last month of May, which I think only half of it, the Borough building was open again, not even half. But we had 100 permits were issued and a revenue of $25,739.50 from those permits. So that's good stuff to get in, finally. I won't bore you with there's a lot of various meetings and stuff that went on, ranging from meeting with Republic Waste concerning billing issues to Dollar General discussions about waivers they wanted to work on Sunday. I don't know, where did that end up?
I think my microphone's on, but our development agreement with Dollar General prohibits construction on Sunday.
Okay.
So we stayed with that.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear it. There was 15 right-of-way and utility issues. And there again, I won't bore you with all I have is names of roads they were on, so it's not super important, but it's just a lot of activity that goes on here in the planning and economic development section of the borough. And staff participated in training on the second of 2 hazard mitigation training sessions. There was 31 violations, including junk and debris, open burning, vacant structures, erosion control, high grass and weeds, and unsafe living conditions. So there's a whole range of things that happen with the violations that people get, not just high grass like most people think. So there's a lot of different reasons. And lastly, there was 61 building permits issued. Of that, 12 were swimming pools, and there was 4 zoning certificates issued. That's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vento. Parks and Recreation, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. For our facilities report in May, most of the crews were only performing emergency repair and sanitizing and cleaning the facilities during the COVID-19 crisis. The community center is still waiting a date from Allegheny County of when they can reopen. We replaced a bad water meter at the Francite building. And then in terms of parks and rec, at Larry Mills Park, the crews finished backfilling the curbs, installing topsoil, grass, and mushroom manure. At Plum Creek Park, the fence work and field work on fields 1 and 3 are complete. So this means all their fields are playable except 2 and 4. And as you saw, kids were out there today playing ball in that. As of right now, the Pirates Camp is still scheduled to happen at the end of July. Just to make sure everybody knows, the dog park did finally open in May. We're still following the policies set forth by the state. We are now in the green phase, so we'll be notifying you when rentals and things like that are available again. And we've also started mowing as well as our turf program at all the fields and parks. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Mr. Delaney. And that concludes our committee reports. The Planning Commission will not meet in June, and that brings us to citizen comments on non-agenda items. Okay, no one has signed up. That doesn't prevent us from allowing anyone who would like to speak, who's present. Okay, we'll move on. The last item is for the good of Plum. So as many of you are aware, businesses in Plum have been substantially impacted by COVID-19, the closures related to COVID-19. And as we now move into the green phase and businesses are starting to open up again, there was a number of us that discussed what can we do to help the businesses in the borough get back on track. And we came up with this Plum Business Support Initiative. And we partnered with the Plum Chamber of Commerce to provide some assistance to our local businesses that has essentially been structured into two programs. The first is a program where each week the Chamber and the borough will put together a weekly highlights blast for the participating local businesses. And this blast will consist of products and services, special announcements, and important information on operations for each of the participating businesses. The blast will go out each Thursday afternoon via all of the borough media, Facebook, Borough TV, Savvy Citizen, and our website, to the entire community to advertise the weekly specials and events at each local business. And then the second item that we're going to be doing as part of the Plum Business Support Initiative is a mailer that the Chamber is developing to go out to each Plum home, which highlights a different business each week for 4 weeks. And that will include a coupon for that business and a chance to win a raffle for those residents who shop at those local businesses. A total of 20 businesses are being sought to participate, and the Plum Chamber is working on that. And each business will have to offer the coupon and sponsor the raffle with a gift card to their establishment, or possibly another borough business that could use the support. Once all of the promotional spots are filled, then the mailer will be printed out and mailed to the residents to participate in the program. So this is a innovative way, I think, to try to help inject some positive momentum into the businesses in Plum. We recognize the impact that the coronavirus has had on them, and we certainly are looking to provide some means to get our Plum businesses back up and running to where they're not only efficient but also productive in bringing in the revenue that they had prior to COVID-19. And that's the item for the good of Plum. With that, I will entertain.
Mr. President, one final thing, if I may.
Yes, Mayor.
Summer's here. June, July, August is movies in the park. Mike, do you want to explain that, or do you want me to go ahead?
Mike, you please do it.
Wait a minute. Did you see the sign I put on his door?
No, I did not.
In his office, you have two choices. You can speak to the man in charge or to the women who know everything. So go ahead, Michael.
Well, Mona's not here to explain, so I guess I'll have to muddle through it. So we are planning on holding the movie this week, this Saturday. It's our planned movie. We're trying to come up with a way to sort of accommodate as many different people as we can to make everybody feel comfortable as possible. We are planning as of right now to have some amount of space set aside for vehicles so that if people want to stay in their cars, they can stay in their cars. We do have the ability to broadcast over the FM, the audio over the FM, over an FM frequency, and we've chosen a different. It's still at Larry Mills, but we've chosen to locate the stage and the screen in a different orientation so that we can have a much larger area so that people can spread out more, they can feel a little more comfortable, and we're not having the concession. We won't have the concession stand open or anything, but we still are going to be providing free popcorn.
Thank you. I think thank you first, Mayor Slagle, for reminding us of that. What else did you want to say?
Well, the solicitor just asked me, what's the movie?
And the movie is
It's
Pets
2.
Pets 2.
Pets 2. Okay.
Mr. Odom, I'd like to second your motion to adjourn.
Quick. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.